Aibuan. So in today's lesson, we're going to have a look at the reading test, which is there in Cambridge Book 7, and this is test 4. So as you know, test 1, 2 and 3 were for academic students. This again is exclusively for academic students. So I'd like you to take your time, right? And how long is that? That's going to be 1 hour. You need to finish all 40 questions. So section 1, section 2, section 3, or rather passage 1, 2 and 3, right? I'd like you to jot down the answers, and after 1 hour when you finish, let's have a look at the answers. So please pause the video here. Alright, so I hope you would have finished it by now. Let's have a look at the answers, right? So please have a look at it, mark the answers. What is inside the brackets? It's not compulsory, right? If you've written it, it's okay. If you've just written sailors, then that is the correct answer. So please make sure you check for spelling, right? And passage 2 here. Okay. And then finally, questions number 27 to 40. Alright, so you can put down your score out of 40 and see how much you have. In the first lesson, I gave you how much you should have to get a 7, 7.5. So you can, hopefully you have it with you. If you don't, then you can go back to the video and check and write down your score. So let's have a look at each of the questions, and before that, if you've got 0 to 11, highly unlikely you get some good score. 12 to 27, somewhat okay. 28 above, probably a good score. So passage 1, pulling strings to build pyramids, right? You're supposed to write down if it's true, false, or not given. Let's have a look at the first question. It is generally believed that large numbers of people were needed to build pyramids. So what are the key words? Generally, large numbers built. So if you go to your paper, now make sure in your screen, right, or rather on your screen, right, you have the paper on one side, and on the other side, minimize my video and have it on the other side, right? So that you can follow through with me while looking at the question paper. So in the opening paragraph, which is the first one, the writer says, the pyramids of Egypt were built more than 3,000 years ago, and no one knows how. The conventional picture is that tens of thousands of slaves drag stones on sledges. This means that there was a huge number of people, right? And these people are generally believed to have been involved in building the pyramids, right? So I think the answer is definitely true. Okay, so have a look at it with your reading passage. So reading passage එක පැත්තක අරගන්න අනිත් පැත්ත වීඩියෝ එක minimize කරලා තියාගන්න. So while you're looking at your reading passage, scrolling down, you can also go through my description for your answer. If it's right, then you don't need to. You can, jump to the next question. වැරදිව විතරක් බලන්න. So number 2, Clemens found a strange hieroglyph on the wall of an Egyptian monument. So Clemens, your keywords, hieroglyph, wall, monument. So again in the first para, the writer states, while pursuing a book on monuments of Egypt, she noticed a hieroglyph that showed a row of men standing in odd postures. This means that Clemens found a picture of the hieroglyph in a book on Egyptian monuments, but she did not find the hieroglyph actually on the wall of a monument, right? So what it means is that when she was reading a book, she saw it, right? But did she see it on a wall? No. Very clearly it tells us that she saw it in a book. So because it's clearly given, it's contradicting, we can say it is false. Question number 3. Garib had previously done experiments on bird flight. Okay, so Garib, previously bird flight. We should just have Garib. We don't need to have Garibs, right? So information on Garib before he did the experiment on Clement's theory can only be found in paragraph 2. But there is no mention, or there is nothing mentioned. Okay, so I'm just going to make this correct, and I'm going to say there is nothing mentioned that he had done experiments on bird flight. I didn't see anything, no keywords to be matched against, so the answer is not given. Okay, moving on. Garib and Graf tested their theory before applying it. So Garib, Graf tested before applying it. Now if you come to paragraph 3, right, it is about preparations of Garib and Graf for testing their theory. And then in paragraph 4, we learn what happened when the theory was applied, right? And again in paragraph 3, the writer reports that their initial calculations and scale model wind tunnel experiments convinced them they wouldn't need a strong wind to lift the 33.5 ton column. So this means their theory had been tested before being applied. So I think that is true. So it was clearly stated that they kind of tested it before they applied it, right? Next one, the success of the actual experiment was due to the high speed of the wind. So actual experiment, high speed wind. So in paragraph 5, where information on the actual result of the experiment is found, the writer says, right, wind was blowing at a gentle 16 to 20 kilometers an hour. Okay. So when you say gentle, is it really fast, high speed? No. Little more than half what they thought would be needed. So this means that the wind speed needed is in reality lower than, what was calculated before. The success of the actual experiment was due to the high speed of wind. No. It was definitely not the high speed, right? So it says the wind was blowing at a gentle, okay, little more than half of what they thought would be needed. So definitely it is false. Next one, they found that as the kite flew higher, the wind force got stronger. So the key words are kite, higher, wind, stronger. Right? Information of the actual experiment can only be found in para 5, right? We only know that when the kite was opened, there was a huge initial force. We don't know, right? There was no reference to the height of the kite nor the relationship between the height and the force of the wind. So I would take that as not given. Right? Question number 7. The team decided that it was possible to use kites to raise very heavy stones. So your keywords are decided, possible, stones. Right? Now if you come to para 5, the writer tells you, so Clemens was right. The pyramid builders could have used kite store to lift massive stones into the place. So in paragraph 5, the writer explains, so Clemens was right. The pyramid builders could have used kites to lift massive stones into place. So definitely it is true. They could have used it, right? Alright, so question number 8 to 13. Complete the summary below, no more than 2 words. So can you write 1 word? Yes. Can you write 2 words? Yes. Can you write 3 words? No. Right? From the title of the summary, right, additional evidence for the theory of kite lifting, it can be inferred that the information should be found in para 7. Others feel there is more of a case for the theory, right? So, let's have a look at it. So, if you come to question 8, right, here are your keywords. Had, lift large pieces of, skill as. So, if you go to paragraph 7, the writer states, harnessing the wind would not have been a problem for accomplished sailors, like the Egyptians, and they are known to have used wooden pulleys which could have been made strong enough to bear the weight of massive blocks of stone. So in gap 8 and gap 9, we need two nouns, right? Something that the Egyptians could use to lift larger pieces of something. The answer therefore should be wooden pulleys and stone, right? So there you go, 8, wooden pulleys and wooden pulleys, right? And then for question number 9, right, those are the two nouns. So for 9, we could use stone. In gap 10 also, we need a noun, right, which possibly indicates a job, as the question mentions skill as, right, which requires the ability to use the energy of the wind. So the word refers to a job and it can only be accomplished by sailors. So the answer is accomplished sailors, right? Right, so hopefully you've got the answers there. 11 and 12, right? The discovery on one pyramid of an object which resembled a blank suggests they may have experimented with, right? So an object, your keywords, resembled, suggest, experimented with. So if you go into paragraph 7, the writer says, a wooden artifact found on the step pyramid of Saqqara looks uncannily a modern glider, although it dates from several hundred years after the building of the pyramids. Its sophistication suggests that the Egyptians might have been developing ideas of a flight for a long time. So here we need two nouns, right? An object that one pyramid resembled to something. The object suggests that the Egyptians experimented with some ideas or theory, right? The answer then is modern glider and flight. Okay? Right. So question number 13. In addition, over 2000 years ago, kites were used in China as weapons as well as for sending what? Okay. So weapons, kites, China, sending. Paragraph 7. The writer states, another ancient civilizations certainly knew about kites as early as 1250 BC. The Chinese were using them to deliver messages and dump flaming debris on their foes, right? To send what? Deliver messages is to send. So what are we sending? Messages. So you can see understanding synonyms or similar meanings is quite important in this lesson. Alright, moving to question 14, right? It's in passage 2, endless harvest. You have to mark if it is true, false or not given. The inhabitants of the Aleutian Islands renamed their islands Alaska. Okay, so inhabitants renamed Aleutian Islands Alaska. Okay, so if you go to the first para, it says Russian explorers and fur hunters landed on the Aleutian Islands and they learned of a landmass that lay further to the north. The The island's native inhabitants call this landmass Alaska, right? So the inhabitants of the Aleutian Islands renamed it. They never renamed it. It was known as Alaska. So the answer is false. Next one. Alaska's fisheries are owned by some of the world's largest companies. So Alaska's fisheries own world's largest companies. If you go to the end of para 2, last few sentences, right? Taking advantage of this rich bounty, Alaska's commercial fisheries have developed into some of the largest in the world. There is no indicating that, their owners can be found. So we don't know really. We know that they have been developed into the world's largest ones, but we don't know if they own it really. So there is a problem not given. Right? We know they have developed, but we don't know if they have actually been owned by them. That is the problem. Next one. Life in Alaska is dependent on salmon, right? Dependent salmon. Go to paragraph 3 and the writer states, salmon pump through Alaska like blood through a heart, bringing rhythmic circulating nourishment to land, animals and people. So it's like your heart rhythm, okay? Which means without a heart we depend on it, we cannot survive, right? So it's like that, right? The land, the animals and the people, it is their rhythmic, their circulation, right? Everything to them. So therefore the land, animals and people all depend on salmon is quite true in other words. Next one. 99% of all Pacific salmon caught are sockeye or pink salmon, right? So 99% in the Pacific caught are sockeye or they're called pink salmon. So go to para 3, where information on sockeye and pink salmon can be found. The writer explains all 5 species of Pacific salmon, Chinook or king, chum or dog, coho or silver, sockeye or red and pink, or humpback swan in Alaskan waters, and 90%, okay, of all Pacific salmon commercially caught in the North America are produced there. It is there, but what is the problem? 90% of all Pacific salmon caught are sockeye. The author indicates that sockeye and pink salmon spawn in Alaska waters, but there are 5 species of the Pacific salmon. We do not know what percentage. So it says sockeye, red, all of these types, 90%. We don't know what is the contribution of these 2 specific types of species. So I would say not given. Just because it says 90% of all Pacific salmon, right? But here it says all 90% are sockeye or pink salmon. So that is the problem. We don't know exactly this 90% is these 2 because here you have all 5 species. So that is the problem there, okay? So we would say not given. More than 320,000 tons of salmon were caught in Alaska in 2000, right? So more 320,000 tons, Alaska in 2000. At the end of the paragraph 3, go and check. The writer says, during 2000, commercial catches of Pacific salmon in Alaska exceeded 320,000 tons. So definitely that is true. Exceed means more than. I've given you the meaning of the difficult words here, so please refer to them. 19. Between 1940 and 1959, there was a sharp decrease in Alaska's salmon population. So, between 1940 and 1959, sharp decrease in the population of salmon. Go to para 4, okay, and in the opening part, have a look at it. The writer says, between 1940 and 1959, overfishing led to crashes in salmon population. So severe that in 1953, Alaska was declared a federal disaster area. So what had happened? They had done fishing so much that suddenly they had a real serious fall in that industry. So the population had dropped because overfishing led for crashes in the salmon population. Crashes means decline. Okay, so this is true. Question number 20. During the 1990s, the average number of salmon caught each year was 100 million. So during the 1990s, average each year 100 million, right? Let's go to para 4 and the latter part, okay, towards the end. The writer says, right, until during the 1990s, annual harvests were well in excess of 100 million, okay, and on several occasions over 200 million. So which means it was over 100 million. This says each year was 100 million. It wasn't 100 million, it could be over, right? So false. Question 21 to 26. Complete each sentence with the correct ending, okay? In Alaska, biologists keep a check on adult fish, okay? So biologists check adult. So if you go to para 5, the writer reports, right? There are biologists throughout the state constantly monitoring adult fish as they show up to spawn. The biologists sit in the streamside counting towers, study sonar, watch from aeroplanes and talk to fishermen, right? So in any area, the biologists can put a halt to fishing. It is this management or mechanism that has allowed Alaska salmon stocks to prosper. Therefore, the most appropriate answer is G, okay? To ensure that fishing numbers are sufficient to permit fishing. Next question, biologists have the authority, biologist authority, right? So as mentioned in the above para, right, one or more field biologists in a particular area can put a halt to fishing. Even sport fishing can be brought to a halt. This means they have the authority to stop fishing, okay? So E is the most appropriate answer. Stop people fishing for sport is also possible. 23. In-season abundance-based management has allowed the Alaska salmon fisheries to do what? Okay. So if you come to para 5, the author also says it is this management mechanism that has allowed Alaska salmon stocks and accordingly Alaska salmon fisheries to prosper. So this management is what? The mechanism here to refer to in-season abundance-based management, right? So it refers for it to be prosper, it's to be successful, right? So answer would be B. 24. The Marine Stewardship Council, which is MSC, was established. Now if you go to para 6, the writer states, in 1999, the Marine Stewardship Council commissioned a review of the Alaska salmon fisheries. The council, which was founded in 1996, certifies fisheries that meet high environmental standards, enabling them to use a label that recognizes their environmental responsibility. What does that mean? That they take care to recognize the companies or rather the fisheries that meet the high standards where they are concerned about the environment. So that should be E. To recognize fisheries that care for the environment, here I have given you words. You can go through it. I am not running through those, right? 25. As a result of the collapse of the salmon runs in 1990, the state decided to do what, right? Result, collapse salmon runs, the state 1999. In paragraph 7, the author mentions the collapse in the months leading up to the MSC's final decision. Salmon runs throughout the western Alaska completely collapsed, right? And then in the next paragraph, he continues to deal with its result. However, the state reacted quickly, closing down all fisheries, right? So what did they do? Close down all fisheries. In September 2000, the MSC allowed 7 Alaska salmon companies. So MSC, September 2000, allowed 7 companies. Go to the last para. The writer states, in September 2000, MSC announced that the Alaska salmon fisheries qualified for certification. 7 companies producing Alaska salmon were immediately granted permission to display the MSC logo on their products, which means they have given permission to display their logo, label their product using the MSC logo, which was what actually happened. Last para. Effects of noise. So question number 27 and 29. Choose the correct answer. The writer suggests that people may have difficulty sleeping in the mountains because what? Okay, so sleeping mountains because. If you go to para 1, the writer states, and yet most of us have had the experience of having to adjust sleeping in the mountains or the countryside because it was initially too quiet. An experience that suggests that humans are capable of adapting to a wide range of noise levels. So this means that most people have to adjust to sleeping in the mountains because they are not used to the quiet sound here. They have adapted to noise in the city and that's what they are comfortable with. Therefore, the most appropriate answer is D. They may have adapted to a higher noise level in the city. Okay? 28. In noise experiments, Glass and Singer found that, right? So experiments, Glass and Singer. Let's go to para 1. The writer states, the noise was quite disruptive, right? At first, but after about 4 minutes, the subjects were doing just as well on their tasks as control subjects who were not exposed to the noise. This means that the bursts of noise only affect the subjects at first and then they are quite comfortable with it, right? You can read through the other answers. So therefore, answer is C because bursts of noise do not disrupt the problem solving in the long term, right? So it talks more about the above sentence, right? How A, B, C and D, the answers. Why A, B and D is wrong, but why is C correct? Right, 29. Researchers discovered, right? Let me just put the E here. Researchers discovered that high noise levels are not likely to interfere with the what? High noise levels not likely to interfere with what? In para 2 in the opening part, the first bit, the writer argues, but there are limits to adaptation and loud noises becomes more troublesome if the person is required to concentrate more on one task. So this means that if the person is required to do only one task, loud noise will not become a problem, right? Therefore, the answer is A, right? So it's clear for you successful performance of a single task. The remaining you can run through it as to why the other answers are incorrect. Question number 30 to 34. Complete the summary. Skimming and scanning through the summary, it can be seen that it deals with the experiments of Glass and Singer. Therefore, we should be able to find the informations in para 3, 4 and 5. Glass and Singer showed that situations in which there is intense noise have less effect on performance than circumstances in which blank noise occurs. So what are the key words? Intense noise, less effect, noise occurs. So if we go to paragraph 3, the writer says, we are much more able to tune out chronic background noise, even if it is quite loud, than to work under circumstances with unexpected intrusions of noise. Now this means that we are able to work better with intense noise than unexpected noise. So therefore, on performance than circumstances in which unexpected noise occurs, right? So it should be unexpected noise. You don't need noise twice, so just unexpected should be fine. Right. All groups were exposed to some kind of noise. So if you go to para 3, the writer says, for some subjects, the bursts were spaced exactly 1 minute apart. The others heard the same amount of noise of overall, but the bursts occurred at random intervals. This means that all subjects hear the same amount of noise, right? So they say exactly 1 minute apart, but at random intervals. So they hear the same exact noise, but in different in different intervals, right? So answer is D. 32. The predictable noise group blank, the unpredictable noise group on this task. So predictable, unpredictable. Now in the same para, which is para 3, right? The writer says, subjects reported finding the predictable and unpredictable noise equally annoying, right? And all subjects performed at about the same level during the noise. So even if it was predictable, even if it was unpredictable, the subjects performed equally at the same level. So noise group perform at about the same level as the unpredictable ones. Answer is F. Right? 33. The group which had been exposed to unpredictable noise, so unpredictable, if you go to para 3, the writer says, as shown in table 1, unpredictable noise produced more errors in the later proofreading task than predictable noise. So therefore, it's I, because made more mistakes than the group which had been exposed to predictable noise. So I is the answer. 34. The results suggest that blank noise produces fatigue, but that this manifests itself later. Okay, so noise, fatigue manifests itself later. Now if you go to para 4, the writer concludes, apparently unpredictable noise produces more fatigue than predictable noise. Okay, but it takes a while for this fatigue to take its toll on the performance. So this means unpredictable noise produces more fatigue, but its effects come later. So it should be, the results suggest that unpredictable noise produces fatigue, but it comes up later. question number 35 to 40, match the statement with the correct researchers. So we've got Glass and Singer, Broadbent, Finkelman and Glass, Cohen et al. Means it more than one, okay, more than one research is there, right? So subjects exposed to noise find it difficult at first to concentrate. So problem solving task, and that is going to be in para A, okay. For example, Glass and Singer exposed to short bursts of every loud noise and then measured their ability to work out problems, right. So it was quite clear that it is from Glass and Singer's research. Long-term exposure to noise can produce changes in behavior which can still be observed over a year later, right. So keywords are long-term exposure, changes in behavior a year later. So if you go to the last para, the writer states, a follow-up study showed that children who were moved to less noisy classrooms still showed greater distractibility, right, 1 year later than students who had always been in quiet schools. It was told by Cohen et al. Et al. Actually means that there is more than one author, actually more than 3 authors, right. Then in-text referencing is done this way. So the answer is D. The problems associated with exposure to noise do not arise if the subject knows they can make it stop. So what are our keywords? The subject knows they can make it stop. Now come to para 5. The writer argues if the individual knows that he or she can control the noise, this seems to eliminate both its negative effect at the time and its after effects. This is true even if the individual never actually exercises his or her option to turn the noise off. So this was by Glass and Singer. So this means that if the individual knows that he can control the noise, particularly turn the noise off, he will not suffer its negative effects. So definitely answer is A. Next, 38. Exposure to high-pitched noise results in more errors than exposure to low-pitched noise. So high-pitched, low-pitched, more errors. In paragraph 2, we are told that Broadbent discovered that loud noises becomes a problem, right? We make more mistakes when the person has to concentrate. This is simply on how well we can adapt to exposure. So no researcher found that high-pitched noise produces more errors in all situations, right? So if you come here, it's actually E where you say no researchers, right? I've forgotten to put that. So just pop it there, no researchers. 39. Subjects find it difficult to perform 3 tasks at the same time when exposed to noise. So if you go to para 2, the writer says, for example, high noise levels interfered with the performance of the subjects who were required to monitor 3 dials at a time. It was told by Broadbent, so the answer is B. Coming to the last question, noise affects a subject's capacity to repeat numbers while carrying out another task. So repeat numbers, carrying out another task. In the same para, the writer also states, simply noise did not affect subject's ability to track a moving line, but it did interfere with the subject's ability to repeat numbers while tracking, and that was told by Fickelman and Glass in 1970. So the answer is C. Now I think with that, you've got the answers for test 4, which is for the academic students, and we've discussed, I've pinpointed where you can find the answer. So with that, we come to the end of the discussion where we discussed about academic answers for test 4 in Cambridge Book 7.